Hello and welcome to News Central Television. I am Dakbo Adigboye, and here are stories making the rounds beyond the continent. Let's tell you that dozens of persons have been killed or injured in a blast at a refugee camp in Rafah area. The Israel Defense Forces said that they had targeted two senior Hamas leaders at one of the group's compounds and would review reports of fire had spread to shelters harming civilians. The strike came hours after Hamas fired 8 rockets from Rafah towards Tel Aviv, the first long-range attacks on the city since January. In a statement released after the blast inside Gaza on Sunday night, the IDF said it had eliminated 2 senior Hamas figures, Yassin Rabia and Khalid Naga, in a precise airstrike in northwest Rafah. Hamas-run authorities said 35 persons had been killed and dozens others injured at a camp for displaced Palestinians northwest of Rafah, away from recent military operations in a designated humanitarian safe zone. Now, EU Foreign Policy Chief Joseph Borrell says the international community must respect the work of the International Criminal Court after the ICC prosecutor Karim Khan last week asked the court to issue arrest warrants for top Israeli and Hamas leaders, including Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, for alleged war crimes and crimes against humanity. Now, the push for the Palestinian state gained momentum last week when EU countries, Ireland and Spain, and ally Norway said they would recognize the state of Palestine. EU Foreign Policy Chief stated on Monday a UN court order telling Israel to suspend its offensive in Gaza and Rafah must be implemented as European ministers met with Arabian counterparts in Brussels. One area where the EU could play a practical role on the ground after the war is the possible monitoring of the Rafah border crossing from Gaza to Egypt.
And I want to say that we have to respect the work of the International Criminal Court. We have to respect the work of this institution and let the court, without intimidation, to decide what they think about this initiative of the prosecutor. Unhappily, it's not the case. The prosecutor and the court has been strongly intimidated and accused of anti-Semitism. As always, that everyone does something that Netanyahu government doesn't like.
La France est très claire. Nous reconnaissons l'indépendance de la Cour, mais en même temps, nous ne faisons pas d'équivalence entre le Hamas et l'État d'Israël, qui est un État démocratique qui doit respecter le droit international. Voilà.
Sondern Deutschland unterstützt die Überlegung, dass wir die ehemalige EU-Mission zur Grenzsicherung, zum Grenzschutz in Rafah neu aktivieren könnten, wenn das dazu beiträgt, dass dort endlich jetzt wieder humanitäre Hilfe reinkommt, dann wollen.
To discuss this further, I'm joined by Bolu Michael B., a foreign policy analyst. Thank you for your time. Bolu, let's get to it. What is your perspective on the ICC prosecutor's decision to seek arrest warrants for Israeli and Hamas leaders, including the Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, on charges of war crimes?
Well, personally, I think it's a welcome development because there's no progress. It seems to be very slow progress as far as the resolution to this war is concerned. And it's becoming like a two-man show whereby, personal vendetta is extending to destroying the life and property of unassuming people. So the fact that, these two individuals tend to, defy the orders of the ICC while people are dying and they're not even willing to sit at the table and negotiate. It's important to call them to order. So personally, I think it's a welcome development.
How significant also will you say the recognition of the state of Palestine by Ireland, Spain, and Norway for the broader international efforts towards a two-state solution?
Well, let's go to the basics. There are 4 things that must be in place for there to be a state. First, there has to be a defined territory, a defined population. They must have a government, and also international recognition. So if you look at the Palestinian states, they have 3 in place. They seem not to have that recognition. So far, over 140 countries have recognized Palestine as a state. So 3 additional countries, following the same line, I think is a step forward towards the Palestinian struggle for a 2-state solution.
Given Joseph Borrell's statement about respecting the ICC's work, what impact might this have on EU-Israel's relation, especially in the context of the ongoing conflict in Gaza?
Okay, well, to me, I think the EU seems to be like a house divided against himself, and a house divided against itself cannot stand. Being that they have obligations to abide by the ICC regulations, and some of the European countries, they also have feelings for the plight of the Israelis, and some others for the plight of the Palestinians. So they are, they have different opinions or obligations on 3 fronts. They are divided on 3 fronts. And this is a bloc that has a common visa, that has a common currency. So why can't they have a common opinion? So it's important for them to come together and put their house together and, have an opinion and have a common front when it comes to the issue of the Israel-Palestinian war.
Now let's look at the implications of this particular court order, particularly for Israel and its efforts at the Gaza Strip. Also, the implication for Hamas. What do you see playing out here?
Well, the court order, I think, basically just set the foundation for international aid organizations to carry out their work. It gives them that legal backing to move in and do what they're supposed to do. However, everything boils down to those on ground, in the sense that even if the ICC has set the legal foundation, but those on ground are not following through, are not executing, people will still be dying, the crisis will still be on, and the ICC will just be issue whatever they have dished out in terms of a document will just be a worthless piece of paper. So I think in the dynamics of the war, everything still boils down to those on ground. However, the ICC order gives the international aid organization or all parties involved in humanitarian action the legal leeway to actually move in and work.
Bolo, as always, a pleasure having you and great connecting with you again.
Thank you, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. We head to the Middle East, where residents in the area of Bangladesh survey for the damage from a cyclone that lashed the coast. The cyclone has weakened into a heavy storm after killing at least 10 persons and destroying thousands of homes. Winds and rain still hammer residents as they try to rescue what remains in their belongings. A day after Cyclone Ramel made landfall with powerful winds and breaking surf. Some drowned while others were crushed when their houses collapsed. In the neighboring country, India, at least 6 persons died, said Sumit Gupta, a senior government official from West Bengal state, including 3 who were electrocuted and others who were hit by debris.
আমার পরিবার আমরা সারা রাত রাস্তায় ছিলাম, এরকম সারা রাত ঘুমাই নাই, জলটা দেখছি কীরকম বাড়ছে না কমছে, কী কাদা কী হচ্ছে। পরে এগুলা দেখলাম, তখন যখন দেখলাম যে বল আগের বারের মতো অতটা না, যার জন্য আবার পরে 3-4টার দিকে বাসা ঘরে ঢুকে গেছি। এটা বাতাসটার তো খুব জোর বেরোলে, তারপর বন্যার জলের চাপটাও তো খুব বৃদ্ধি ছিল, কিন্তু আগে না একটু কম বাতাসটা, গত সিটোরের চেয়ে মানে একটু বাতাসটা কম থাকায় হয়তো জলটা একটু কম হয়েছে, যতটা হওয়ার কথা ছিল ততটা আসে নাই এই আর কি। কিন্তু বন্যা তো খুব দীর্ঘস্থায়ী ছিল, 30-40 মিনিট বা 1 ঘন্টা পানি বৃদ্ধি হয়, কিন্তু এখানে 3 থেকে 4 ঘন্টা সময় যাবৎ পানি বৃদ্ধি হয়েছে। পাশাপাশি বাতাসটা দীর্ঘ সময়, আমরা যতটুকু জানতে পারছি যে সন্ধ্যা 6টার সময় আঘাত হানলেও এখন পরের দিন প্রায় 10টা-11টা বাজে এখন পর্যন্ত চলমান বাতাস প্রবাহ চলছে। পূর্ব দিকের বাতাস, যে বাতাসে সাধারণত নদী এবং সাগরের পানি উত্তল থাকে এবং বৃদ্ধি পায়, এই প্রায় 10 থেকে 12 ঘন্টা যাবৎ এই বাতাস চলছে। এর ফলে জোয়ার, স্বাভাবিক জোয়ারের থেকে 8 থেকে 10 ফুট পানি অলরেডি বৃদ্ধি হয়েছে, আমরা যেটা উপলব্ধি করতে পারি।
Let's go on a quick break. When we return, we have more stories. Stay with us. A senior U.S. lawmaker has affirmed Washington's support for Taiwan against Chinese aggression. Representative Michael McCool made this known on the first congressional visit to the South-Rhode Island since it sworn in a new president. Sitting with President Lai Ching-te on Monday morning, McCool, who heads the influential House Foreign Affairs Committee, said he and his colleagues stood in support of this beautiful island. 3 days after Lai was sworn in, Chinese warships and fighter jets encircled Taiwan in drills that Beijing said were a test of its ability to seize the island. Now, Chinese claims democratic Taiwan is part of its territory and says it will never renounce the use of force to bring the island under its control.
政府将秉持4个支持，并积极落实和平4大支柱行动方案，与美国及理念相近国家持续加深合作，共同维护区域的和平稳定与繁荣发展。
President Lai, I'd like to note the boldness in your recent inaugural address when you said, quote, sovereignty lies in the hands of the people. So true. Mr. President, this year we celebrate the 45th anniversary of the Taiwan Relations Act, which guides our partnership and the United States' commitment to peace in the Taiwan Strait.
China's Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Mao Ning says that Beijing opposes the visit of U.S. lawmakers to Taiwan, the first congressional visit to the South-Rhode Island since it sworn in a new president. The spokeswoman also hit back at the G7 finance ministers' concerns about the country's trade policies and industrial overcapacity, saying that Beijing would reject any countermeasures.
了解，我想说的是，过去40多年，中国经济取得的成功是改革开放的成功，也是市场机制作用和政府作用有效结合的成功。中方不接受七国集团单方面认定所谓非市场政策和措施的标准。事实上，少数西方国家针对特定国家、特定企业采取的歧视性做法，才是真正的非市场行为，构成了对市场的扭曲。 美国有关议员不顾中方强烈反对，执意窜访台湾，违反一个中国原则和中美3个联合公报，也违背了美国政府作出的仅与台湾保持非官方关系的政治承诺，向台独分裂势力发出严重错误信号。中方对此坚决反对，已向美方提出严正交涉，将采取必要措施，坚决捍卫国家主权。
In Europe, the death toll from Russian strikes on the hardware store in the eastern Ukrainian city of Kharkiv has risen to 16. As rescuers searched, they charged debris for bodies. Russian strikes hit the epicenter superstore on Saturday, sparking a massive fire that makes the dead hard to identify. Police said 6 of the dead have been identified, including a 12-year-old girl who was visiting the city, while several others were still listed as missing. Now, police were asking relatives to give DNA samples to help identify bodies in the ruined store on the northeastern outskirts of the city.
Що взірвалось і все винесло, двері, я знаю, вікно, квіти всі там валяються.
Хорошо, выходили из подъезда, в этот момент прилетело, бабахнуло и стекла посыпались. Ну, ребенок заскочил в подъезд, а бабушка упала. Ну, ничего, цела. Жить буду.
Ничем это не кончится. Они даже не чувствуют, сколько они горя приносят этому украинскому народу. Этим деткам маленьким, старикам 80-летним. Они не чувствуют даже этого. Они с улыбочкой, с ухмылочкой все это говорят. Я думаю, что надо им отвечать.
The trial of former mayor of Cantalou, Melanie Balanga, alongside with 18 other defendants for extensive drug trafficking was suspended Monday until next week for procedural reasons, pending a possible examination of a cessation appeal. The 13th chamber of the Bobigny Criminal Court had placed the case in continuation until June 3rd. The possible continuation of the trial, scheduled to last a month, will depend on the High Court. Elected mayor in 2014 and figure of Norman socialism, Melanie Bolanga, is being prosecuted for complicity. She's suspected of having put pressure on the police service so that they do not interfere with the affairs of the formidable Mezani clan, known for holding deals in her city and creating a reign of terror there. Let's also tell you that friends and family of 3 French citizens, Cécile Collier, Jacqueline Perry, and also Louis Arnaud, imprisoned in Iran, are appealing to the United Nations in Geneva to put pressure on Tehran and draw attention to the fate of the hostages. Now, one of the kidnapped sisters, who has been held for over 2 years with her partner Jacqueline Perry, hopes to draw international attention to the situation, as she said her health is deteriorating and it's time for this nightmare to end for everyone. Cécile Collier, a teacher of modern literature, was arrested on 7th of May 2022 while traveling in Iran with her partner Jacqueline Perry, charged with espionage.
Vraiment besoin d'une reconnaissance de leur situation, de leur détention arbitraire et du besoin que nous avons qu'ils soient libérés au plus vite.
Leur libération, c'est une urgence absolue aujourd'hui. Leur santé se dégrade et il est temps que ce cauchemar se termine pour tout le monde. On a des appels de manière très aléatoire, toutes les 4 à 5 semaines. Là, la dernière fois qu'on a eu des nouvelles, c'était le 13 avril. Donc en ce qui concerne Cécile, elle a pu avoir ma mère pendant 3-4 minutes. C'était un appel très court. Les appels se déroulent toujours sous haute surveillance, donc en fait sa parole est contrainte. On a beaucoup de difficultés à vraiment communiquer. La connexion est souvent très mauvaise, ce qui empêche aussi la communication. En fait, ces appels sont plus des signes de vie que des communications réelles.
Ce qu'on observe, c'est que l'Iran est aujourd'hui engagé dans une diplomatie de la prise d'otages, c'est-à-dire qu'on prend des ressortissants de toutes les nations en otage en les arrêtant pour des motifs très souvent parfaitement fallacieux, et ensuite on dit au pays de chacun de ces citoyens du monde: faites des concessions, à défaut de quoi nous ne relâcherons pas vos ressortissants. Et la situation dure. Aujourd'hui, la raison pour laquelle nous en arrivons à saisir les Nations Unies, c'est que ça fait...
4 persons were injured after a knife attack in Lyon Metro in central eastern France. The attacker has been arrested. Now, the police reported that 2 of the victims were wounded in the abdomen and the 3rd person in the arm. Lyon Public Prosecutor Thierry Drain says investigation has started into the attempted homicide. He said the 3 victims are being treated by emergency services and their lives were not in danger.
La personne en cause est un ressortissant marocain au profil psychiatrique, je pèse mes mots, mais quand même chargé, puisqu'il a fait plusieurs passages dans plusieurs établissements psychiatriques, notamment dans d'autres régions de France. Tout ça est en cours d'expertise par l'Agence régionale de santé, mais il était donc psychiatrique et il n'était, bien sûr, c'est aussi important de le souligner, absolument pas connu d'aucun de nos fichiers. Il ne présente pas de profil particulier, si ce n'est un profil psychiatrique assez lourd. Alors, il était effectivement sous le coup d'une OQTF assez ancienne, qui date de 2022, qui a été prise à l'époque par la préfecture de la...
France Parliament has opened debate on a deeply controversial right to die bill backed by President Emmanuel Macron, which he has highlighted as a key reform of a second presidency. If the bill becomes law at the end of discussions, it's likely to last for more than a year, and it will bring France closer into line with its European counterparts, some of which have already permitted assisted dying. Macron has insisted that any authorization to choose death should be limited to people with incurable illness and intense pain. The bill is referred to as focusing on end of life in the French debate rather than euthanasia. Now, the French president said that the goal was to reconcile the autonomy of the individual with the solidarity of the nation. Let's also tell you that a painting by Italian master Caravaggio, once mistakenly thought to be by an unknown artist, has almost auctioned off and has been unveiled at the Prado Museum in the Spanish capital. David Garcia Cueto, head of the Department of Italian Painting at the Prado Museum, said this is really an important event, as it is more than 45 years since no work by Caravaggio, the Italian painter, has appeared. The artist, who lived a violent and chaotic life, pioneered the barrage painting technique known for the chiaroscuro, in which light and shadow is contrasted. Now restored, the old masterwork went on display to the public for the first time on Monday in a one-piece exhibition called The Last Caravaggio. It will remain on display for 9 months.
Un acontecimiento realmente importante para la historia del arte, en tanto que hace más de 45 años que no aparecía ninguna obra de Caravaggio con el consenso de los especialistas y de la crítica.
And that's a wrap on the news at this time. Don't forget, of course, to follow us across these platforms. That's DSTV channel 422 StarTimes, channel 274 Abo TV, and YouTube. You can also follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV or at Digboye. Let's talk.